Susan, you ready?
Yep.
Lawrence and Jimmy too?
Both Jims. Both Jim. Good evening. This is the regular meeting of the Lake Orion Planning Commission, Monday, November 7th, 2022 at 7:30. Pledge of allegiance. Okay, roll call, please.
Chairperson Zenek requested to be excused. Vice Chairperson Cummins requested to be excused. Secretary Laurent.
Here.
Commissioner Dunn.
Here. Commissioner
Lamb.
Here.
Commissioner Slaybo.
Here.
Commissioner Smith. Commissioner Van Portfleet.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Great. We're looking for approval of the agenda.
Move to approve?
We have approval of the agenda and a second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Approval of the minutes of the Planning Commission regular meeting on October 3rd, 2022.
Move to approve?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Public comments on non-agenda items only. I'd like to make sure that when we do the public comments, we stay to 3 minutes. State your name and your address, and you're welcome to come up. Okay, this is a little different than it's been lately. No public comments. All right, we'll move on to old business. There is no old business. We'll move on to new business, which is 44 East Flint Street mixed-use redevelopment proposal presentation, and we'll start with Laura.
Thank you. Evening, Commissioners. This agenda item is for discussion and presentation only this evening, so there's no action being requested. There's no formal review or plans in your packet. The village and the DDA have met with the applicant and their development team for a redevelopment proposal at 44 East Flint Street. This was the former pet center that burned down a couple years ago. The Planning Commission reviewed the proposed site plan for a surface parking lot that would be privately owned and operated. That did not materialize. And the applicant tonight is looking to kind of just give a presentation of their concept plan thus far for a mixed-use 3-story building with some retail on the ground floor and a lobby area, and then 16 apartments for rent, a mix of 1 and 2 bedroom on the 2nd and 3rd floors. They have, in their meetings with the village staff and consultants and the DDA, they've been exploring the lot that's directly to the south, which is the DDA parking lot, and what kind of community benefit might be offered as part of this development, or if there could be some shared parking arrangement. So that's still being explored, but one of the things that is on the table tonight that they would like your input. Following this discussion tonight, we anticipate to have another pre-application meeting with them to kind of finalize some of these concepts, and then we expect a submittal to then formally come before you for site plan consideration. Since the building they're proposing is only 3 stories, it does not trigger special land use. They're not requesting a PUD. This is just a mixed-use development on one of the downtown center blocks. So the applicant is here this evening along with the architect, Jeff Klatt, to provide a presentation and for your ideas and insights. Thank
Okay.
you.
Is Jeff making the presentation?
Yes.
I am, thank you. How are you?
I'm good, how are you?
Good.
Good evening, I'm Jeff Klatt with Krieger Klatt Architects, 2120 East 11 Mile Road, and I'm here with the developer Alexi Georges as well. So again, thank you for the opportunity to present our project this evening. Again, very conceptual in nature, but we're not, as Ms. Ha mentioned, we're not seeking formal approval. Just like to get your high-level thoughts and feedback, which will help us button up our project for the next round, for a formal presentation. So thank you for that. I'd also like to thank Ms. Ha and her team, as well as Ms. Molly Lalone of the DDA over the past month for listening to.
We're trying to get the mics to work. I'm so sorry.
Oh, no, that's okay.
Nothing. I can't get it anywhere. Get rid of it. We're going to work.
Is it working? Could you guys hear me anyways through all that? Was it okay?
Yes.
I'm trying.
Yep.
Are you I don't think it'll connect.
Oh, this won't connect either?
That one might. We've been having a lot of technical issues, and the cable company has been out here. Oh, maybe.
Oh, here you go.
Oh, there you are.
Hey, it's working.
Okay,
Look at
that's
that.
one thing. No mics,
We're
but we
working.
have that.
So where I left out, I just wanted to thank Ms. Ha and her team, as well as Ms. Lalone of the DDA. Over the past few months, they've worked with us. We've explored numerous options from a 4-story development to a 3-story development. So we appreciate all their feedback, help, and guidance to get us to this point. So we feel right now this is a project that makes sense from a development standpoint, and we hopefully makes sense from a downtown standpoint as well. So we have a very brief presentation, which is in front of you, then we can answer any questions you may have too. So high level, it's really a 3-story mixed-use building, ground level retail along East Flint Street with an entry for the apartments, and then we have 2 levels of apartments above for a total of 16. So I believe you're all familiar with the location. That yellow square on the screen represents the exact spot. So it's corner of 44 East Flint in South Anderson. So the lot's roughly 0.314 acres, about 114 by 120. You know, as Ms. Ha mentioned, there's no development on the site. Currently used as a surface parking lot. A couple of views of the site, which I know you're familiar with, so I'll skip through these quickly. You know, view of the buildings across the street that would be adjacent to us. From a zoning standpoint, we are in the downtown center. I believe we check most of the boxes. I believe we comply, generally speaking, from a height standpoint. I know 4 is allowed. We're proposing 3 setbacks. We have we're proposing 0 lot line along the major roads and a 50-some foot setback at the back, mainly for parking. Height is okay, setbacks are okay, the use is allowable. The parking, we have a bit of a shortage from a parking standpoint based on what the ordinance requires, and I can explain that in a minute. So from a building standpoint, this is really our site plan and first floor plan. So as you can see along Flint Street, which would be the top of the screen, item A, that would be our apartment lobby right there. So there'd be a door, a storefront presence, a door leading into the facility for access to the 2nd and 3rd floors. Letter B, that would be our retail area. That's about 3,100 square feet, give or take. You know, various support spaces, staircases, elevators, a small trash room in the building too. Things you just need to support the building. Item D, that gray shading, that represents covered parking. So generally speaking, the 2nd and 3rd floors would extend over that to cover the parking. And the balance of the lot behind us to the south, which is item E and item G, that would be open, uncovered parking. So there'd be a maneuvering lane and then about 11 parking spaces behind it. You know, per discussions with DTE, we most likely will have a transformer at that right-hand corner at the bottom of the screen right there for new power coming to the site, which would most likely be across Anderson Street, directly across the lot. The power would come from that direction. So again, nice storefront presence along Flint, along South Anderson. There's also some existing street parking where F is. I believe there's 4 spaces along Flint and about 8 along Anderson Street, which accounts for our opening into the lot itself. The next plan is the 2nd and 3rd floors. These are identical, and this would stack directly over the 1st floor, including that parking area below. So we're suggesting a total of 8 units per floor. For the most part, they're 1-bedroom apartments in the 700 to 800 square foot range with 1 2-bedroom unit per floor, and that's a little bit larger at 930 square feet. So overall, 14 1-bedroom units, 2 2-bedroom units for a total of 16 overall units at the 2nd and 3rd floors. The building isn't designed yet, but per conversations with Ms. Haw and her team, we want to do something that fits in, something that ties in with the community, masonry, there's a lot of brick, maybe some stone, again, a lot of storefront glazing to really provide that connectivity or extension of the downtown fabric to the east along East Flint Street. Just nice balanced facade, timeless, high-quality materials. We want to tie in with the existing streetscape. So these are just sample images. For the next submittal, of course, we'll have the building designed we'll present something that's attractive that fits in. But these are just ideas of what the building could look like. A lot of masonry. So then the parking, that was the next thing that was mentioned. So from an ordinance standpoint, this is something we would need your thoughts on. So we understand right now there's 2 parking spaces required per unit, per the ordinance. So 16 units times 2 is 32 spaces. We're proposing a total of 23 on site right now. So I believe that's, if I go back to our site plan, we had, I think it was 11 or 12 that were covered and 11 on the backside. So a total of 23 spaces on site. That's roughly a 1.44 ratio of spaces per unit. But then again, there's also the 12 spaces that are along 44 Flint in South Anderson, as well as the DDA lot behind us to the south. So essentially, we're requesting relief for 9 parking spaces if we're looking at our lot directly by itself. And I know there's some mechanism that allows for maybe parking to be paid for or leased from the city, or the village, I should say, for those additional spaces. So we're not sure what your appetite is for that. And as Ms. Haw mentioned, we had a conversation with Ms. Lalone of the DDA too about the lot to the south of us. So we did some very preliminary high-level studies of what the current lot is. If we were to look at our lot as proposed and that DDA lot as it exists, item number 2 up there shows that there's about 75 total spaces, 63 off-street, on the lot itself, and 12 on the street. If we were to look at some shared strategy where we blur the lines, we don't put up the masonry wall, which is required, and we have this blurred open parking field, we net out about 4 more spaces. We actually lose some on the site, but we gain a bit more on the street along South Anderson. So we have some sketches and high-level ideas we put together for that, but it would need to be really ironed out. So I guess what I'm saying is we could pick up a handful or maybe 4 more spaces if you look at a blurred lot or a blended combination there. Other thing we looked at too is, and I don't think this would be good for the city or for the streetscape, we looked at maybe eliminating the retail and parking all the way into the building. If we eliminated the retail along East Flint, had some openings for ventilation, and simply parked all below that building, we can most likely net out the required parking. But I don't feel that, and I don't think the village would feel too, that's the best use of the frontage of the buildings, to have that full of parking versus a nice retail frontage. So there's ways we can do it, but we think that it would be better for the community as a whole to have the retail on the front. So again, we're looking at options, but right now, as we speak, there's about a 9 space deficit, what we're proposing. So that's generally what we have today. So again, just looking for your thoughts and feedback regarding the development itself and the parking as well too. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions?
I have a couple of comments. I always think it would be great if we had this prior to the meeting, I'm just saying, so that I could think about it a little bit more. It's the first I've seen.
Understand.
Yeah.
And, no, I
So
appreciate.
it's kind of
understand.
cold feet, you're standing there going, right? But anyways, I don't see the possibility of the street parking as being dedicated to the building.
Understand.
To me, that represents a problem. The shared possibility with the DDA lot in the back, possibly, but maybe your retail could be a little smaller. I'm not sure. You guys have done some due diligence. What about even, the apartments are fairly small, 800, 900 square foot, less units, larger apartment, higher rent. What's your target rent? Do you have a market, you have a guess on that? Are you trying to do $1,000 a month? What are you trying to do?
I don't know offhand. I might defer to Alexi for some of those comments. But generally speaking, we design a ton of multifamily around the state and out of state, and those are about the sizes we're seeing, common for 1-bedroom and 2-bedroom units. I know, thinking back to the 120 South Broadway project, when we initially submitted that, and that went through zoning board, I believe, for the parking deficiency, there was about a 1.5 ratio. think there was 24 units, 32 spaces. So here, we're at 1.4, just counting 1.44 ratio, counting the parking we have on site and the building itself, the units itself.
But that's one thing that the public have said many times over, is they complain about parking, 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 parking.
I understand.
It's a high note of interest. Probably needs some more work and consideration on that. They are mostly single-bedroom, 14 and 2. That I was a little bit surprised at, but I'd like to see something happen with that corner. And I'm not so sure, when I look at your dumpster location on Anderson Street, it's going to roll out. How's that going to work?
Yeah, they would have to actually wheel the receptacle out to be picked up, and that's common in some urban areas. We've done that quite a bit, especially in Royal Oak, where the dumpster is pulled out for service.
Yeah.
And Ms. Lalone had a good comment too, maybe as a community benefit, if we were to develop the lot or look at a shared plan, could the developer, could Alexi provide some type of trash enclosure, communal trash enclosure? I know that's something the DDA is looking
Right.
for, and I think that's something Alexi would be willing to provide too as a community benefit, if given some relief for parking.
I'm happy to see 3-story, not a 4-story attempt. That would really be out of place with that immediate residential area right there. But that's just my first couple of quick comments.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Mr. Lamb?
Thank you. Is the developer here? I don't know. I'm fairly new to the business end of the. And your name, sir?
Alexi, Georges.
George.
Georges. George with an S.
Okay, Alexi.
Yep, Alexi.
Nice to meet you, Mike Lamb.
Nice to meet you too.
And you did the building downtown?
No, I didn't.
Oh, you haven't? Okay, have you done another building in town?
No, in town, no, I have not.
Oh, okay. All right, so you're new then.
Yes,
Oh, okay. Well, welcome to the community.
definitely do, yeah.
I find it refreshing that the initial plan has come right out into the open to the public. A lot of complaining lately that people are sneaking around and we don't ever hear about anything. But after Sherry's wonderful public presentation and you guys getting this right out, I want to applaud you for just bringing it right out to the public. It's nice. It's right in the middle of town. It's important.
No, we prefer to work with you guys versus against or behind or, around the back end. It's
No, it's just
much
great that
easier, much beneficial for, I think, both sides.
Yeah, it's such a small community that the public is always around.
Correct.
I was wondering, do you have any estimated gross cost of the building at this point, a project, 2 million, 3 million?
That's probably gonna be north of 3 million.
Oh, I'm sorry,
Because of the fact that we're still trying to go through all this, get your feedback to know what direction we're gonna go in 100%, we don't have those exact numbers as of right now. But I would imagine it's gonna be north of $3 million,
Okay,
but potentially.
yeah, I don't know, apartments used to cost 50,000 each, but I think those days are long gone.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
if we were doing it all of ourselves, it might be, but
Yeah, the parking is, there's been such a hue and cry to beat down on parking in the community, relaxing parking requirements in this climate may not do well with the public. And, like I said, we're always in flux with those kinds of issues. We are a 100% urban community with the density, where I've lived in some of the larger cities, even though people don't seem to get there, but you guys get it because you're trying to find parking.
right.
And also, I think there has been some interest in parking meters downtown for some time now. And I think that may become, we don't know for sure, we'll see what happens in the future. So that the spaces on the main streets, I don't think would be acceptable for use towards the count. That's just where we've been at lately with other projects. So, other than that, I'm excited, 3-story building, no conflict, fit in the community. Nice masonry exterior,
Right.
it fits in with the downtown, all looks good. And the park, right now, we just have a ugly corner, it's used though very nicely for free parking for the community.
Right.
But, we understand that, a nice building would look nice there. So,
Right, but we're bringing residents to the city, for sure.
Yeah, so it's nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
Any comments? No?
I have one more.
Barclay?
Thank you. I think that retail component on the first floor is a must. So I applaud that as well.
Yeah, we assume that
No,
too.
I agree.
I mean, based on that zoning and the community around it, it makes sense.
The only thing I thought about your zero setbacks, and what typically happens quite frequently here, is whatever that retail may be, is there ends up being a need for a little wider sidewalk, whether it's some outdoor seating or something that gets applied there. That extra 3 or 4 feet can be of great value as it changes and morphs into what it will end up being. We've seen that already, like when you mentioned 120 and with the COVID, and so it's worked out real well in the community, and just possibly keep that in mind as opposed to pushing things into the street, because we did that as well. We had outdoor seating out into the parking areas, but care not to do that there.
No, thank you. And that's something we could explore, work with Ms. Hall and her team on too. We want to, I guess, at least make sure we establish a pretty common street line too. So we'll work with Ms. Hall on that as well to see
Sure.
what makes sense. To push the building back a bit, does that help us or does that benefit the community? Something we'd explore, definitely.
The main vehicular access off South Anderson Street, right?
Correct. Yeah, that'd be off South Anderson. It's really a split, it's almost a fairly common, we'd have one central drive aisle, half the space would be under the building. What is unique in this plan too, we are suggesting, as you can see on the screen here, a bit of tandem parking. So like, for example, we have the 2-bedroom units. So I guess if you were to look at it from a bedroom count standpoint, if you were to have provide at least one parking space per bedroom, to gain additional parking, we're proposing 2 tandem spaces. So those would support the 2 bedrooms. They'd be devoted to those units where, one person would park behind the other vehicle.
That makes sense.
A way to net out a little bit more parking. But we don't have as many 2-bedroom units, based on market study and demand. Oh, maybe one question too about the parking. Is there maybe a ratio that would be more acceptable? I know we suggested 1.4, but I know a lot of communities are amending their ordinances now. And I mentioned Royal Oak before, and I know it's not approved yet, but they've been considering like 1.3. Other communities have been adapting based on things such as rideshare, Uber. It's a different time now than when the ordinance was first written. So is there any consideration as to what may be an acceptable ratio from a parking standpoint? It's like
Well, we've really pushed hard for 2,
2?
and we had a project that got turned down because they couldn't get to 2.
Okay.
We have a lot of walking in the community, but what seems to happen is we have a huge peak traffic issue at dinner time and stuff like that. And so like anytime I've gone downtown in this community, I could find a parking spot. I just had to drive around a little bit. So I think there's always a parking spot, but of course I don't go out to dinner at 8:30 on a Friday night.
Sure.
Okay, so I go out, 6-ish or earlier, so. Well, some of us are older, we can't go. So, so there are some parking peaks that really are a problem that people complain about.
Your location's right in the middle of it, right in that 4-corner square.
Yeah.
That's a
yeah.
great
If it
Probably
spot.
the
was
busiest area of
A
the area.
little bit more outlying, maybe there could be some, but it'll be busy.
Do you know what our current downtown occupancy rate is for the other apartment buildings? Have you done any study?
The other building on Broadway is 100% leased.
Okay. So I think we have pretty low rents on some of the buildings and high occupancy. I don't know what's going on in the 4-story. I don't know. So I think the smaller apartments, 1-bedroom apartment, that's suitable for a couple, an older couple. Doesn't drive.
It could
much,
be,
has one
could be.
car.
Typically, the demographic is usually, 25 to 35 in those type of downtown settings.
Yeah, and we have I built 2 houses in the village this spring, and young couples with small babies moved in right away. That's really where the community's headed.
Yeah.
So,
The shared parkings with DDA was mentioned earlier too. We suggested we could pick up a handful, maybe 4 or 5 additional spaces, depending on how we lay that out. Is there any appetite for us pursuing that further with Ms. Lalone, the DDA,
I think you
regarding
should
that?
look at it.
Okay,
I mean, you know, this is first blush,
sure.
and you guys have come in open-handed, and I think you should look at it.
No, we definitely will explore more. I mean, there's questions to be answered about that too, maintenance, who pays for what. So things we'll have to figure out behind the scenes, but just wanted to gauge your appetite for that. If that's something we should explore, continue down that road. We've had very high-level discussions over a Zoom call, but I think it would warrant, more in-depth study too.
Good.
Okay.
And I thought there were some ownership issues with the DDA parking lot, so it's restricted. I would prefer to see you buy some spots, and own them and incorporate them into your project. But that, I'm not sure what that, and DDAs have been known to, sell property to developers in order to create better economic development in the community. And so that would be right within their mission to do something like that. There's some restriction on that lot, from the gentleman that donated it.
Okay.
He's another businessman downtown, his name, he has a sign on the lot, donated by, and there's some restriction, I don't remember what it was, though.
There is another lot close that you might ask her about.
I'm sorry, pardon me?
There is another lot close that you might ask her about.
Slater Street?
Yeah.
I think there's an opportunity for some strategies to be employed and try to think through it. I would not say no at this time.
Okay.
No options, in other words.
Ms. Hall?
I just wanted to mention that I think if you look at the site plan on the screen, what Jeff was talking about earlier with the on-street parking, and correct me if I'm wrong, Jeff, but I don't think you were saying that would be dedicated to the parking for the residents, but where F is on the key to the north on East Flint Street, because that building would line the entire block frontage on East Flint, you would be able to gain 2 more on-street parking spaces for the public, and they would be providing that as part of this development. That normally wouldn't exist now because that's right where the curb cut goes into the surface lot.
Okay.
So there would be an additional benefit, not for residents of the apartments, but just the general public to have 2 spots there in the front. You can see where it's striped off because of the access drive.
So they'd be creating 2 more public,
Spots.
On-street
spots that
spots.
didn't exist, so if we gave them credit for those because they created them, that wouldn't be something that would be too far out into the left field.
It's something to consider, certainly.
Oh, thank you, Laura. I overlooked that. Thank you.
Did the commission have any feelings on the building architecture and materials? Because this was something that we had discussed with their team based on kind of the public's reaction to 120 South Broadway. And
Well, I think some of the renderings show that their head is in the right position on that corner.
Yeah, it's all masonry on that street, right?
Yeah.
Every building is masonry,
Yeah.
correct?
Yeah.
And some have stone.
Yep.
So I don't think the ultra-modern, Royal Oakish glass facade is really planned in.
No, I think,
That's been another one of the cries that we've heard from the public quite frequently is maintaining some type of historic character, historic feel,
Okay.
keeping in with our current history and time of the community.
Good to know.
No, thank you. Appreciate that.
Good to know.
anybody got anything else? Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Exactly, yeah. Okay, well, thank you. Appreciate your time today.
Thank you very
so
much.
All
Thanks
right.
for the feedback.
Thank you. We're going to move on to McKenna Planning and Zoning Monthly Report.
yes, thank you. In your packet is October's monthly report for your receive and file. Let me just pull that up real quick. I noted here regarding, let's see, this is on packet page 17, that the Eman Center PUD was was granted their 10-year commercial exemption certificate by council on October 10th. And then the last sentence in that paragraph also states that at this meeting, a 6-year extension request was considered and approved by council. That may be in error from 6 to 1. I looked back at the council meeting minutes, and they do say six-year
It
extension.
should be one.
1-year
It's a 1-year
extension.
extension, yes, I clearly remember it. It's another, just a typo or something.
Okay, then we'll make that note in our report, and council may wish
That's what I
to.
remember also is 1 year.
I'm sorry.
I'm the one that raised the question actually with Ms. Hall prior to this meeting, because I did not recall it 6. And I would like to verify it, but I do believe it was 1 as well.
I remember it very well because we thought it was all theory.
So it needs to be reviewed, and I would accept the report. I'd make a motion to accept the report pending the review of that one item. So I do not want to have it published that we did if we didn't.
Okay,
In the village council meeting minutes as well?
Yeah, that
That's-
should be correct.
That's where I looked it up from.
Yeah, so we could ask Susan to take a look into it. It's just a typo. Six years, the interest rates will be 30%. I'll never put that.
Yeah, I thought that was a little suspect when I saw that in there. And then,
Can I ask you a question on something else?
oh, please.
The marijuana.
well, there's a motion on the table.
Is there a motion?
There's a motion on the table from Mr. Van Portfleet. Needs help. I'll second it.
I'm sorry, who
Oh, I'm
who
sorry.
made the motion?
I made the motion
Mr.
to,
Lamb? And you made you seconded it?
no,
No, he made the
You
motion.
did, I didn't think so, okay.
I made the motion to accept the report pending the investigation of the 6-year, clarification of the 6-year additional, because I felt it was a 1 as well.
I'll second that. All in favor?
Can I ask my question before we?
Or is it,
It's about this
okay, go ahead.
report. The marijuana provisioning center, we don't get any reports except for your report at the meeting, so. Is this the marijuana provisioning center on the west side of M24?
Yes,
Okay,
nestled within the Mosher development, Mystic Cove.
okay, site plan review has begun. And then we're gonna get it sometime in December. Okay.
Hopefully.
And are they coordinating those entrances and arrangements and stuff with the Mosheri project which surrounds it, I'm sure?
They have a pending lot split with them as
Okay.
well.
And they're gonna have a totally separate entrance and separate everything, correct?
Yes,
Okay.
one entrance off of Broadway and one entrance off of Heights, or one
Now,
exit on.
I noticed recently, since this is my only chance to input before the project is submitted to the planning commission, that the live site has had numerous traffic conflicts going into the McDonald's parking lot. And I had asked for a cross-access easement, and was told it was too steep. It wasn't too steep, but I don't like to argue with the engineers.
Okay.
I would also make sure you take a look at cross-access for avoidance of turning traffic on M24. Because I see them pull out of Live all the time. That place is packed and hop right into McDonald's just like I told them they would. And I've witnessed several crashes and near calamities. So if you could just make sure you add that to your review about the cross-access if possible.
Certainly.
Thank you.
Are they pulling into McDonald's because they've missed the live?
No, they.
Or there's not-
They go to Live, and then they pull out of Live, and the first place they go is McDonald's. It's so stereotypically funny that I hate.
Oh, they're intentionally going into
Yes,
McDonald's,
intentionally
okay.
going into Live, but there's such a high traffic volume and speed through there that they quite often,
Okay, I see.
people don't expect them to turn immediately.
Okay, thank
They
you.
pull out and brake, and then they get cracked.
Anything else, Mr. Lamb?
No, that's it.
All right, we've got a motion on the table with a second. All in favor? Opposed? Okay, we're moving on to commissioner comments regarding planning and zoning matters.
Excuse us.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Mr. Lammy, would you like to start us off?
Sure, I was
Thanks for
very,
coming.
I was very happy to, hear that the Mosheris are totally redesigning their project at the marina. I have no idea what to expect, but I'm hoping a much better response from the citizens on the second project, and, other than that,
Okay. Mr. Van Portfolio.
Tagging on to that, it's not the first time that the developer, Mosheri, has listened to the public and come forward with lower densities and revised plans. And so, again, trying to work with us, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Mr. Dunn? Nothing tonight?
Nothing at this time.
Nope. Nothing for me tonight, other than thank you all for coming who came tonight. Crowd was down a little bit from the most recent ones, but that's okay. We need a motion to adjourn?
Yes.
So moved.
So moved. Support. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Good night.